Welcome to Chapter 3 in QuickBooks. And this week we are going to focus on customers. So last week was vendors, now we're going to work on customers. And I will just skip over the objectives. So in QuickBooks, it allows you to track transactions on a customer basis. So the nice thing about QuickBooks is everything is interrelated. You can get to something through a vendor transaction, through a payment, and through the check register, or you can go through the customer. And so what we want to do, ideally, just like we talked about with the vendors, is to create the customer file the minute the customer comes on board, and not waiting until you've got the customer's deposit there to then go back and try and find the contract and all the payment terms and all those things, so that you can at least do a thorough, complete job the first time. Although, like with the vendor files, there is a way to, in mid-transaction, add that customer. But again, not the best practices. In the customer window, we can do things like create invoices, we can receive payments, enter sales receipts. We'll talk about what the difference is between a sale receipt and receiving a payment, and we'll also use that to make our deposits. QuickBooks will update the customer's account as we enter transactions, and then it will also update related reports. So the customer related reports, accounts receivable, things like that, that we can print at our month end, or really at any time, will be updated in real time based on the transactions that we enter. If we want to make the comparison between our traditional old school manual accounting and the QuickBooks version, in the manual accounting system, hopefully you remember, we have the accounts receivable subsidiary ledger. The comparable QuickBooks version of that is the customer center. In traditional accounting, you have your sales journal. In QuickBooks, we have the create invoices window. In the manual system, you have the cash receipts journal. And in QuickBooks, we have the receives payment window and the enter sales receipts window. And again, we'll talk about the differences between the two when we get to that. Like with the vendors, we've got some default accounts, and QuickBooks just automatically is at least smart enough to understand that there are going to be certain accounts when we do those transactions that will result in a credit or a debit. And so when we do the create invoices window, that will automatically increase or debit our accounts receivable. When we receive the payment, it will automatically decrease or credit our accounts receivable. And what kind of an account is accounts receivable? Asset account. Here is a screenshot of what the Customer Center looks like, and we'll hop over to the live version shortly and see this, but it has all the basic data that you would want to see at a glance about the customer: name, address, who their contact person is, what kind of customer, what their payment terms are, do they have a credit limit, if so, what is it, what's their preferred payment method, and what do they currently owe us. So this is basically all of the snapshot information that shows up right here on the customer screen. And I will talk about how to add a new customer, and then we'll go over to the live version. So when we click the new customer, we're going to go to the Customer Center, new customer and job button, and then the new customer, and then we can start entering all the details. And it's very similar to the Vendor Center, hopefully you'll remember, because it has down the left side all these various tabs to go through and set up all the details of the customer once you've gotten all of the necessary contact information put in there. So I will stop here and go over to the live version, and we will create a customer. So now we're here in our Customer Center, and we see we've got our toolbar here at the top, and we have our Customer Center. And the first item on our Customer Center is, lo and behold, the Customer Center. And so we've got our basic data screen, and whichever customer is selected here, it will display the information on the left-hand side. And so you'll see that. And so here's where we enter new customer and job. We can either add it again by the job or by the customer, and depending what kind of industry you're in will dictate which one of those. For me, it's by the customer. You can also do a multiple job ad. And so here you put your customer name in here, and then this is all your contact information. And then you can put in the account number, what the payment terms are. Again, we had talked a little bit on the vendor screen about the 210 net 30. If that's your deal, that's where you can enter that. And if you have special payment terms that are unique to this client, you can, well, it's given you many to choose from. You can do an add new, and then you can create some new terms there. Are we going to be processing credit cards for them? This is something that I think you want to be really clear about whether or not this is data that your credit card merchant will permit you to save. My credit card merchant would require Fort Knox level encryption and security before they would allow me to save a customer's credit card data. So I just don't. But again, you may have a different setup. So it's important to just check and know whether or not this is something that you are allowed to save and maintain. Specifically, yeah, can I save the customer security code? And so that's kind of the last ditch effort. Are we doing ACH transactions? This is something that we would need to enable. It's a feature in QuickBooks, but I just wanted you to see it. We could do that, but I'm not going to do that at this point. And again, if we wanted to be able to automatically process payments, and if we're automatically processing payments, then yes, in fact, we do need some method of storing the credit card information, but we don't want to make a habit of it unless this is something that we've got the level of encryption in our network necessary to safeguard this information, because the kind of steps that a company needs to take when their security has been breached are really, really burdensome. And the best way to avoid having to deal with security breach issues is either A, have an unbelievably robust encrypted system, and I don't know, many companies struggle with that. And we've seen in recent years, Target, places like that have been hacked. I think Kohl's possibly. And I think most small businesses would struggle to even have the level of data encryption that a multinational company has. So just something to be aware of and watch out for. Price level, we can add new. So I'm going to pop out of that. In this Customer Center here, we can also edit from this screen. So if we need to edit this stuff, I think we'll have a slide that shows us that shortly, but I figured while I was over here, I would show you this information. If we want to attach something, maybe we want to attach a copy of the contract that we have with the client. This is a place where we can either get it from the computer, a scanner, if we have a document center, but kind of a handy place to create sort of a one-stop shopping kind of a dashboard for your client. You can also see your transactions. You can sort them by this fiscal year. You can sort them by prior periods. It doesn't have to be a full year. They have their primary contact info here. Any to-dos that we're going to do. Notes you want to make. Emails. And maybe a to-do. Maybe you've got your client's birthday in here. Maybe you're wanting to reach out on significant dates and and do some marketing. So this is a good opportunity for you to keep track of some things that maybe don't even necessarily apply to QuickBooks. While we're over here, I may as well go over what's going to be on the next slide we're going to look at because we're already here. And so the next thing we're going to talk about is deleting a client. So here we are, we're in our customer center, and we can also access a number of the functions related to the customer center. If we come up to our main toolbar, and you'll see that this is just a floating window here. I could expand this and it would, kind of lock right into our main toolbar, but this is still our main toolbar up here. And from that, we can access some features specific to our customer menu. So we can delete a customer or a job. And just as with the vendor center, I'm really reluctant to ever delete anything. You just never know when you're going to have to go back and find some information. And I was contacted a few months ago by an old client who, let's say, took some creative license in doing her taxes and tried to claim some of her legal fees as a tax deduction that I wouldn't have claimed if she'd asked me, but she was getting audited and she wanted to try and fight this issue. So she had asked me to come back and put bills together for her, not put them together, but essentially get her copies. She had lost the copies, they were years old, and now she needed to defend this audit. My guess is she lost, but that's another story. And so if I had deleted her when the case was over, that would have been a real problem. And so for me to just be able to go back, reach back into these prior periods and get the reports and the transactions she needed was a whole lot easier than to go back and figure out what I did for a case that has been over for years. And so again, making the customer inactive is just, it's a check mark. And if we do that, this is Jefferson High School, so I can remember who that is. Lo and behold, Jefferson High School is now no longer on our active customer list. If we want to see them again, we can go to all customers, and lo and behold, there comes Jefferson again, and it shows in here that it's inactive. So if we want to resurrect them from the inactive world, there they are, returned to their rightful place on our active customer list. So, so we're back over here. I figured I would just show you the slide on how to delete the customer in case you wanted to read a little more about it, but since we did the demonstration, I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. Same thing with the edit. I think we've hopefully gone through that. If not, drop me an email. And so you can do the quick check on your own. I'm going to stop this video here and go on to the next video for creation of invoices.